Sox in the basement.
Special episode of Sox in the Basement. Today we're going to be heading out to Cork and Kerry at the park at 33rd and Princeton. Before we talk to our guests who are part of the $1,000 guest bounty, let me remind you that for exterior windows, doors, patio doors, and storm doors, look no further than Window and Door Superstore of Oak Forest. No high pressure sales, not in your kitchen. You are in their showroom. You got full examples, glass designs, all the doohickeys on display. Owner in showroom and on site, so all your questions are answered, and their own installers, Window and Door Superstore installers, are there to do the work. They don't farm it out. That's how you get it done right. That's how they've been doing it for 4 decades. All major brands custom made and no stock items for a perfect fit. Window and Door Superstore of Oak Forest is a half block east of 159th and Ridgeland at 6280 159th Street. See more at windowdooroakforest.com. And off to the Cork for a special 2-guest. Part of our $1,000 guest bounty. This is interesting. This is behind the scenes. This is something special the White Sox did. And I think this is the first time you're going to hear somebody talk about it in this detail right here on Sox in the Basement.
And welcome into a special episode of Sox in the Basement from Cork and Kerry at the park, the proud sponsors of Sox in the Basement, and also the folks that are sponsoring the $1,000 guest bounty. This could be a winner when it's all said and done. We had a listener suggest these guys coming on the show. Listeners will be voting online. We'll have a couple different ways for you to vote during spring training, and the person that brought in the best guest this offseason on Sox in the Basement wins $1,000 from Cork and Kerry at the park, 33rd and Princeton, in the shadow of the ballpark. As you can see behind me, the fun doesn't stop even though baseball is over, and looking forward to a new season of White Sox baseball. Alex Yeager, is a White Sox fan, and in a moment we're going to find out what he does along with Devan Joshi. Guys, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having us on.
Here.
All right, so I'm really interested in this. I mean, I've been excited about the idea of doing this interview. Explain to everybody, Alex, what you guys do. Okay. Because you worked recently with the White Sox, and I believe it was last January, about a year ago, they would have gotten the results of what you did for them. But explain what it is that you guys do.
Yeah, so both Devan and I work in the data space, right? And we're working on an applied data science master's at the University of Chicago. The White Sox actually reached out for some work, right, from a student group to basically analyze, what is kind of like a newer set of data, right, that is right for the type of data science and AI applications that we focused on. And so, as part of our capstone, project for that program, we basically did I think about a 9-month program, right, Devan? Which was pretty intense. I think pretty difficult. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. So it was. You could do part-time or full-time. I think you were full-time, or
I was part-time.
You were part-time. You were both part-time. And so you take a set of classes and move on, and brought capstone online at the same time. And yeah, we were. It was a lottery pick almost. So you have a lottery system to what projects you want to sign up for. And I think I put White Sox my top 3. Maybe you did the same.
Yep.
And we were both, on the same project with 2 other guys. And it was a great experience.
So what you guys did was look at biometric data, if I'm not mistaken, to then try to figure out, one, how the White Sox could fix players that they already have, things that players could do differently, but then 2, how they could almost like scout for players that may have a deficiency but could get better at what they do, maybe hit better if they change something. Take me through that process.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a ton of different use cases, right? But there's this kind of new class of biomechanical data. You can think about it really as...
It's as if they know we're doing a show.
I know, exactly.
You know what it is? It's excitement over the fact that the White Sox actually went out and started using like biometrics and analytical data and started catching up, and maybe might be doing something ahead of what other teams are doing, and that's what I'm excited about hearing about. So you take me through this again now. So What did you exactly go and do for them?
So we focused on digging into biomechanical data for them, right? So this massive data set of data, which comes from these kind of high velocity cameras. They're able to capture basically like all of these movements of the human body, right? And so you think angles, velocities, momentum, et cetera, of all these body parts that are important across swinging. In particular, what we focused on was hitting, right? So there's all sorts of other applications, but basically these Hawkeye systems will allow you to capture this kind of massive quantity of data that you've never been able to capture, right, on how the human body moves and how it translates to sport performance. And so what we focused on was, trying to basically dig through that massive pile of data and then be able to extract insights. Some of that is insights to potentially identify, players that are undervalued in the market. And another approach might be to try to improve the players that you have by identifying, the things that they can do mechanically, right, to improve their performance, right? Notably things like bat speed and other aspects like that.
All right, so Devan, it sounds like there's a lot of data. There's a lot of different things that you're looking at. You're trying to break it all down. How difficult is it to find that missing piece? Because here's the thing, it's very easy to say, we're going to go and we're going to do something that nobody else has done before. We're going to find some kind of inequity, some kind of thing that no other team has found before. But you don't want to make something up. You don't want to be like, well, we got to come up with some result. So how do you make sure that you're getting something that's real and tangible that the team can use?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the hardest thing I think initially was just getting all of the data, from the Hawkeye tracking system and just understanding it. Right, that's the first step. Is looking at all these data and figuring out what actually matters and what contributes to a great hit and what doesn't contribute. There's a lot of noise involved as well. So part of the job, the biggest actually task that we had was just getting rid of that noise and focusing on what metrics actually matter, right? Because the biomechanical data, it takes in everything. It's angles from your ankles to your knees to your wrists to your head to where your chest is facing at all different points throughout your hit. So I think the biggest obstacle was just to figure out what can we focus on and what's like something that doesn't really affect the outcome that we're looking for.
Now, I don't want to give away anything that the White Sox did, but Alex, I think about when you gave this data to the White Sox, which would be a year ago in January. I think about a prospect that they had by the name of Colson Montgomery that we talked about so much, especially at the beginning of last season on Sox in the Basement. And the idea that Colson was getting to every level in the minors and was actually getting worse. His batting average was going down, his power numbers were going down, his on-base percentage was going down. He wasn't getting better, he was kind of going backwards. And we didn't even think he would be a call-up last year. They go and work with him individually in Arizona. He comes out, now he's a guy with a potential of 50 home runs a year. He's a guy who's number 88 on who's the best players in Major League Baseball right now, according to MLB Network.
Yep.
Okay, and so now all of a sudden, everything's turned around for him. How would data like what you collected impact a Colson Montgomery? Because I'm sure you want to take some credit for something like that, right?
I think it would be crazy for us to take credit for that, right? I do think that the fact that the White Sox are kind of investing in this biomechanics data, right, and the team that really did that, which is the team we worked with, is that biomechanics team with data science kind of in partnership. I think that team's work, is probably a large contributor, right, to what has happened with Colson, right, and as well as his work as well. And if you think about a guy like Miguel Vargas too, right, who also had a major swing change throughout the year and had a pretty large, increase in performance from say like March, April onwards as a result of that. I do think that what we saw at least was there are changes you can make in a swing to really dramatically increase things like bat speed and other elements, right? That would, I think help improve performance, right? And I think it's just exciting to see the Sox investing in that type of analysis.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's really interesting because I think whenever we hear that there's a new hitting coach or there's a hitting guru now in Ryan Fuller, that it's going to be a guy that's going to just look at a guy in the cage and go, oh, you got a hitch in your giddy up, or like just kind of lean this way a little bit or level this out. But what you're telling me is there's like 1,000 points of data that say, no, this is where we can fix this player. Is it bat speed? Is it the way that they're swinging at? Like, is there, without giving away things that would be almost proprietary to the White Sox, I don't want to give away any of their advantage, but like what kind of things did you see that are important in a hitter?
I mean, I think the whole league, believes in bat speed, right? And so it becomes a question of how to generate it, just being an important measure.
And you guys may be figuring out how to generate it.
Our hope was, I think to help on to that extent, right? But I'm sure, most other teams, I'm sure, are kind of focused on the same problem. So I think that's a pretty universal concept that people are focused on. We also did look at other parts of the swing. I think those are really difficult to peel apart. Like, it's hard to know exactly what the angle of the swing should be like. There's been a lot of debate in baseball around uppercut, swings and kind of the change in approach, across
there's the whole launch angle idea.
Exactly, the whole launch angle.
Want to go at 27 degrees, that's the best way to do it. And all of Major League Baseball tried to do that, but it doesn't work for everybody.
No, exactly. And I think you see when you get into the complexities of biomechanical data, right, that one size fits all approach is kind of silly, when you're looking at hundreds of thousands of data points. But more than anything, I think the Sox need to, and they seem to be pushing forward their sophistication, across all forms of hitting, right? It's not just bat speed, it's not just angle, right? It's really being able to kind of create these tailored plans for specific players. And I think that's the way of the future. If you look at the organizations that are the most successful, that's what they're doing, right? Is they're not one size fits all. They're really creating these kind of like sophisticated, tailored plans to get the most out of every hitter.
So, Devan, is there also a look at equipment? We saw the torpedo bat, which could change the way that the ball comes off the bat. You get guys sometimes that maybe get slowed down by the armor on them or things like that. Does any of that come into play when you guys are looking at all the biometrics?
I don't think so. The biomechanics are all about the body.
Yeah.
So we didn't really take into account any additional factors such as any equipment that the player's on. But a point that Alex made out that was really interesting is that the same size doesn't fit all, right? It's very case dependent on the players. So what works for one player and the type of swing they have might not work for another player. So it's not equipment that we're taking into account. It's more so just like traditionally, can we categorize these players into separate buckets and categories and then try to figure out a solution for their specific type of swing.
Well, the greatest thing about this is that, one, it shows me that my team's trying to be forward-thinking, but the other thing is it might explain some of the moves that they've made in acquiring players. Because some of these acquisitions are kind of head-scratchers, right? But you look at the amount of outfielders, let's say, this offseason they've gone and grabbed. They've grabbed several players on the cusp of the majors but haven't been able to break through. Then they grab a guy like Jared Kelenic. Now, Jared Kelenic was can't-miss prospect. He's going to hit 40 home runs a year, got a rocket arm. Like, this guy's going to be a stud. Doesn't figure it out in Seattle. Had one more stop. And now I think it was Atlanta. Now he's here with the White Sox and he's on a minor league contract, but he's still 26 years old. So my question is, the data that's being collected, the stuff that you presented to the White Sox, is it possible, how probable is it, that looking at that data, the White Sox can say, this player here can be fixed if we teach him this thing we learned in this study? Is that something, like, are they picking players based off of stuff that you've shown them?
I don't know if it's based on what we've shown them, but I do think that the type of work that we focused on, right, which is kind of biomechanics and the ability to make impacts in a player's swing, right, through changes, to how their mechanics work. I think that's very feasible, right? If you look at how Brian Bannister, for instance, developed the pitching lab and was able to change the career and trajectory of pitchers by changing grips and arm slots and things like that, right? I wouldn't be surprised if they were the White Sox, like in conjunction with the new kind of hitting leadership, we're trying to build that type of concept for hitters, right? And I do think that, again, those kind of things like driving more bat speed, optimizing angle, all of that, right, are the kind of things that you can really tweak in a hitter and really start to see results, right?
You're a Sox fan.
Huge Sox fan.
You got your hat sitting over there.
Yeah. I die hard. I was Steve Bartman for Halloween, making fun of Cubs fans. I was at the 2005 World Series. I was fangirling the first a couple meetings. I was almost didn't know how to talk to the Sox team because I just growing up as this big Sox fan, so it was cool to be able to do the project.
And so, did this become personal for you working on this? You're we got to figure this out because this team needs all that they could possibly get from us. I mean, it's not, they kind of have a self-imposed payroll cap. They're not really I just saw something the other day. We're going to get into it on the next show, but I mean, there was a chart that came out that explained the revenue that each team brought in last year and how much they actually put into payroll. Doesn't look good for the White Sox. Just adds the idea of maybe they should be spending a little bit more money. But you are a fan of this team. You see what's going on with it. You want to see them win. How personal does this become? Do you find yourself putting in extra hours just because you want it to succeed?
Yeah, I don't think my
Because
wife...
this guy here told me he's a basketball fan.
He's more of a basketball fan.
He was like, look, I do the data, but like, Alex is a fan. Like, right? So, I mean, like, how personal did this become for you?
It got to a point where I was like, all right, this is a capstone project, not your real job, right?
Yeah.
You know, like where you're stressing about it. My wife wasn't super happy about it. She also knows how much I kind of love the White Sox and baseball, so she was totally good with it. But it definitely did. I mean, we had a part-time team, but honestly, a bunch of rock stars. Like the guy who was really like the leading force in our team, Hank, is now working for the Mariners, and he got his job on it. I think at least didn't get his job because of our work, but I think he was able to parlay it into like a use case basically to get hired by another baseball team.
Yeah. I mean, my biggest challenge was, I think we all had our different challenges when it came to this project, but like personally for me, I think it was different for everyone. Mine was just understanding the sport, understanding the acronyms, the type of pitches, the type of hits, the players, the tendencies. As I'm sure you played baseball growing up,
Yep.
So like as a player, you understand how your body moves when you're swinging, right? And so like how your ankles should move, how your chest should move, where your body's lined up, how to hit the ball. And so I think those things for me, my biggest challenge is understanding the sport in general, understanding like if I stand back, look at it from a holistic perspective, how is it being played, what really matters, what doesn't matter. But these guys did a great job of also like helping me understand that.
And honestly, a lot of the principles that are, I think baseball started using are now being applied to other sports. Like you look at three-point form in the NBA, right? It's about consistency, arc, angle, your leg push off. These are all things that can be measured with biomechanics, right? I'm waiting for the day that football, has this focus as well. But
Is it weird for you though, as a baseball fan? Like, look, we were all kids at some point, right? You probably watched the White Sox as a kid. You watched baseball as like, this is just beautiful. Like these guys are just out here. You see a great play, see a guy come up at a big moment, get a big hit. Is it weird for you now that you see numbers almost? You're like, well, that happened because he had good bat speed, or his launch angle was correct, or he had the perfect form. Like you're watching the replay and you're going, that kind of looks like what we study. That's why that ball went where it went. Like, does it change it for you a little bit?
I think you can distill it too much down to numbers where it's like not fun anymore. But I also think it's another lever that you can like push and get better. Like I wish I would have had this information when I played baseball.
Yeah,
like, there's no chance
you'd
I would
be
have.
A star.
No, 0% chance of that. I can't say that. My wife will make fun of me. But but really though, like I think it gives reason to like what before seemed like pure chance.
Right.
Like why is this person having a good season or a bad season or all these things? I like that. Not everyone likes that, right? Some people like the unpredictability and the volatility, and there's still plenty of that in baseball, right? Even if you're hitting 350 versus you're hitting 250, right? You could still win the day, depending on how you play. But I don't know. I think it's cool, but I'm also a data scientist, right? So I'm probably a bit biased.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty cool assignment to have when you're a data scientist. We're going to talk more with these guys in just a moment, but first, we got the Sox nerd with some tidbits and trivia nuggets now.
Back to the Cork in a few minutes, but first, the Sox nerd, Dave Marin, on the line. He gives you trivia and tidbits and nuggets on the scoreboard at the rate each and every home game. And then he joins us each and every week with even more on Sox in the Basement, brought to you by the Village of Lamont. Want to experience the downtown's real history, great eats and drinks, and green spaces filled with adventure? Visit the Village of Lamont. Shop, dine, drink, explore, and see everything they have going on this weekend and beyond at lamontdowntown.com. Nerd, what do you got for me?
Fellas, the Sox nerd mourns the passing of legendary White Sox pitcher Wilbur Wood, who died January 17th at age 84 in a Massachusetts hospital. The knuckleballing lefty was a constant for the red-clad Renaissance White Sox of the early and mid-1970s. He was the favorite player, I'm sure, of many of my generation who followed the Sox on WMAQ radio, Channel 44, and in the daily newspaper. Ask your grandparents, kids. Our Sox-loving grandparents had Ted Lyons. Our parents had Billy Pierce. Sox fans of the 1960s had Peters and Horland, and we had Wilbur Wood. Then there was the generation of Hoyt, McDowell, and Burley. Wood's numbers were amazing, unheard of by today's standards. 300-plus innings, 40-plus starts, 20-plus wins, and 20-plus complete games in a season. Save for an occasional 20-game winner, no pitcher will ever approach those numbers again. He was a rock and an innovator, mastering and commanding a freakish pitch that has gone the way of the 8-track tape and the rabbit ears. The portly soft tosser was a workhorse reliever before he became a workhorse starter. He set the MLB record with 88 appearances in 1968, which is still a Sox record. In 1970, Wood led the American League for the third year in a row in appearances with 70. He made no starts. The next year, Woody was incredible as a starter, posting the highest WAR ever, that's 11.7, for a pitcher who did not win a Cy Young Award. The Cy in 1971 went to the A's Vida Blue, whose WAR was 9.0. Thanks to Jim Mylock on X at Pot of Fame for that one. The next year, because his trademark knuckler was easy on the arm, Wood amassed a whopping 376 2/3 innings, the most by an AL pitcher in the modern era, and the most in the majors since Grover Cleveland Alexander's 388 for the 1917 Phillies. 1972 was also the season Wilbur made his only appearance in an All-Star game. His catcher that July night in Atlanta was Boston's Carlton Fisk, who was also making his All-Star debut. Wood was an atrocious hitter, compiling a .092 average in 292 at-bats. He is the worst hitter in White Sox history for those with that many at-bats. However, Wood did have one glorious moment in the batter's box. On August 9th, 1972, the tortoise beat the hare as Wood's RBI single off Nolan Ryan accounted for the only run in the White Sox 1-0 win in Anaheim. Wood threw a six-hitter in securing his 19th win that night. Wood started and lost both games of a doubleheader in 1973. Wood won and lost 20 games in the same season. He anchored a 3-man starting rotation, and he started 5 consecutive opening days, with the last coming in 1976. On that day, with the Sox debuting their big-collared black and white clam digger uniforms, Wood treated 40,318 fans to the franchise's last complete game shutout in an opener. And you know what? That just may be the last complete game shutout by a White Sox pitcher on opening day ever. I hope one day the Sox retire Wood's number 28 and give him a statue at the park, if for no other reason than to acknowledge that a man can look like Wilbur Wood and still be a dominant big league pitcher. Rest easy, Woody. You earned your place in Sox 70s heaven, seated at the right hand of Dick Allen, along with Bill Melton, Chet Lemon, and Ed Herman. Before I get to my zinger, let me remind you, all my 2025 player reviews are posted, and I am posting birthday updates, a daily Sox list, and almanac items on Twitter and on my WordPress blog, which you can link to at soxinthebasement.com. My zinger? How about a little something to wet your whistle for my deep dive next week on Sox recent signee Sir Anthony Dominguez. Dominguez will join Clay Carroll as the only pitchers to go directly from Game 7 of a World Series to the White Sox. Dominguez's last outing was in Game 7 of the World Series, where he threw a scoreless 10th for the Blue Jays. Carroll got the win for the Reds in Game 7 of that iconic 1975 World Series against Boston before joining the 1976 Sox. More next week. That's it, fellas. Probably more than you wanted to know about the 70s Sox and portly knuckleballers.
Did they look at pitching at all?
There was a little bit of pitching data that was in the data set, right? Like context that was important for us to analyze.
But it's almost you're looking at pitching so that you can better explain the hitting.
Exactly, right? So what are the interactions with hitting, right? So think about, like pitch angle and velocity and pitch type, really interacting with how hitters handle that.
So when do they come to, when does this start, the project? Just so I understand the timeline.
Devin, definitely correct me, but I think it was about a 9-month period from March of 2024 through December, and then we presented in March 23 to December 23, and then presented Jan 24.
Yeah, that's the process. Yeah, but throughout that process, we still had class like once a week, right? Once a week, where we were working on like creating our like focusing on the value proposition with a professor, and then we would go back to the White Sox, and we had frequent meetings with them as well because we partnered up with their data science team as well. So we were trying to work on the data with them in conjunction with our professor.
we were able to see the draft room and a bunch of other cool stuff.
Right. Well, I just want to clear up that timeline. So you had said earlier that last January is when they got it. Was it last January or 2 Januaries ago?
Last January.
Last January. So it would have been 24 presented in 25 because it's 26 now.
Yep.
Okay. And the only reason I asked that is that I'm trying to make it clear in my head this is all a Chris Getz thing. This is all this new front office, what they're actually doing, and that they realized at some point that they had to find a way to help improve their hitting. And I think that's really interesting, and maybe you could comment on this based upon what you saw. And I don't want, it's so funny, I went up to go get a beer for me and you, okay? Because this guy here, he's not drinking. I don't know why.
That's okay.
I haven't offered to buy him one, okay? But I went up there to get a fresh beer, and I asked the bartender for the beer, and she goes, "What are you doing? Who are you interviewing?" And I said, "Oh, these guys, they did this like analytical biometric thing for the White Sox to improve hitting, and like nobody else has done it before. We're talking about it." And the first thing she said was, "Well, don't give away anything, because I want to win."
Yeah. No, that's interest number one.
That's literally what I just got told.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I would have got another beer if I said, "No, I'm asking the hard questions." Like, don't give anything away.
Yeah.
I got a warning. Don't give anything away.
Yeah.
So, but I look at this, and I look at when Chris Getz starts this. I look at when Ryan Fuller's brought in. I look at the idea that the White Sox seem to have realized we don't have a lot of money to spend right now. We want to improve the things that are not on the field so we have a better base for like what kind of team we're building. And also it's hard to trade for hitters. Much easier to get pitching. Pitching seems to be an easier thing to acquire, seems to be easier to draft. But hitting and developing hitting from the moment you draft it all the way through rookie ball, A, AA, AAA, seems to be a hard thing. And a lot of the thought over the last couple of years was, well, then you have to trade for a AAA player that's close to the majors and then hope that he hits because you've seen him get to AAA.
Yeah.
It seems to me like this project, and correct me if I'm wrong, the idea behind it would be this is how we develop players. Because it's so hard to get a hitter through all those levels and actually have him realize his talents.
Yeah.
That would be the purpose of something like that. Am I right or am I wrong about that?
It would definitely be a use case, right, for a lot of the things we're focusing on. You could also think about it for scouting even, right, for some hitters in college.
Because the scouting thing, they would sit there and say, okay, this is what he does, and he does this right.
Depending on,
this is correctable, this is something we couldn't correct, but this is something that's easily correctable and it would fit your data.
Exactly. You have, what hitters should you target? And then theoretically, once you have them in the system, how do you optimize them?
Interesting. So essentially, this is the lay of base for the type of hitter that the White Sox would want to go and get either in a draft, in a trade, the type of hitter they want to, if it's in their system. They might look at a guy and say, okay, you fit what we can fix and we can improve on, so we're going to pay attention to you. That's essentially what this does.
Yeah, and they did the same thing for many years with left-handed pitching, right? They developed a lot of lefties, so you develop this data-driven approach and competency, right, to developing certain skill sets, right? And so I don't think it's just one type of hitter. I think potentially you eventually look for multiple archetypes, but ideally you want to develop the capability to target types of players and then fix them, right, over time.
Devan, quick question for you. Would you say that what the White Sox had you guys do is something that any team probably has already done already or could do? Or do you think it was more of a unique assignment? Was it like we're looking for something specific that other teams haven't figured out yet? How would you categorize what they're doing? Are they catching up or are they looking for something new?
Well, I think the goal with any organization that is working on some of these projects is to gain some sort of competitive advantage against their competitors. So if there's anything that they haven't seen that maybe their competitors are doing, maybe they can catch up to it. Or I'm sure there's certain things they're doing better and certain things that they're lacking in. But I do think this sort of project, if you look back, can be done for any organization. Any sporting, any athletic organization that has, players that has some sort of goal that they're trying to reach, I think can be done across industries, across organizations.
But do you think this is rare what they did, or do you think this is commonplace? And you guys, somebody else could have easily already done this. That's what I guess I'm trying to figure out. I mean, look, Alex knows what I'm saying. He's been a fan of this team. He's like, Chris is trying to figure out if they're behind, if they're where everybody else is, or if they're doing something that's like revolutionary. I think that's what I'm trying to figure out here with this team.
I think what they're trying to do is pretty common. Yeah, I think a lot of teams are at least now, I'm seeing biomechanical tracking and, Hawkeye tracking system is what they use. But, the Bulls, I'm sure, are also using some sort of biomechanical tracking system. But I think a lot of teams are now really focusing in on analytics and really trying to gain that competitive advantage any way they can.
Interesting. Alex, as a fan of this team, where do you hope this takes them? Like if I had to describe, because I don't want to give away what the White Sox are doing, but if I asked you to describe what a prototypical White Sox hitter is, because they've never had that. They've never had a White Sox way. They've never had a way that they approach like the plate where it's like a uniform thing. But now after what you guys have seen and what you presented them, what would you say is a White Sox hitter going forward, or what they would like to see?
I mean, ideally, you want to be able to find and fix hitters that can generate significant bat speed, right? I think that is what the best organizations do.
If they're good at bat speed, that's something you can fix the other things. It's bat speed is everything.
Potentially, well, there might be other ways to also generate more bat speed, right? So it's not
there's other ways to get it going.
But theoretically, you want to be able to develop players that hit the ball hard, right?
Yeah.
In the modern game, the Sox have struggled for probably since I was, probably for 10, 15 years at least to develop power hitters, right? And so I think you want to be able to develop power hitters over time, because I think that's been kind of a big skill gap. There are other skill sets, right, that you also want to be able to develop, like on-base ability and things like that, right? But I think if you're going to develop an archetype, right, it's probably power hitters, to some degree.
Yeah, but in that 3 true outcome, right? We're not looking for a guy that's either going to hit a home run, walk, or strike out. I mean, is what they're teaching them also going to produce base hits, gappers, things down the line? Like, they're not going to lose the ability to play the game, right?
No. I mean, the ability to generate, let's say, more bat speed, right, should benefit also your ability, right, to do other things. If you don't want single outcome hitters because they're limited, right? But you also you don't want hitters that can't generate bat speed because they're just a more limited profile. So you have to be able to, I think, realistically to find hitters that are going to be super impactful over a period of time. You have to find ways to either find assets where you can increase that bat speed, or potentially hitters that have flaws that you can correct, right? That already do have bat speed.
So as a fan, what are you looking forward to this year? Who's going to be good? I mean, like I'm asking you this more, like it's really funny. I have a weird motivation for this. Like on one hand, I'm just curious. Like, who do you think is going to take a step and that you're excited about as a player? But I feel like if you tell me this guy I think is about to break out, I feel like there's some data behind it. So like you're kind of, I'm putting a little weight behind what you're saying here, even if you don't realize it. Like, who do you like on this team? And like, he's got a lot of young stars. Like, who do you like on this team?
There's no proprietary data behind this because we did the project over a year ago. I think Kyle Teal is going to be a star. I really do. I just think his combination of skills, right, to what we just talked about. He's not a single outcome hitter where he's just trying to hit home runs, but I think there's some untapped power in that bat, and I also like the fact that he can get on base, and I do think he's going to be a guy that can hit for average, right, over time as well. And so I personally think he's the most complete, right, of their young hitters. I think if a guy like Cuero, for instance, could develop power, right? Maybe he's a candidate for increased bat speed and the ability to drive more power. I think he could be a star too, right? But obviously, love a lot of the rest of the core too. But
you've seen Murakami, right? Like you've seen this guy. The concern is coming over from Japan. How's he going to do against off-speed pitching? I mean, he clearly must have bat speed if he hit all those home runs over there. Like when you saw that signing, analytical mind and fan mind both kind of fighting in your head. What did you think of it?
I love the signing at the price.
Yeah.
In part because, he's 25 years old. Elite hitters, Abreu, for instance, even supposedly Shohei, I don't know if this is true, but I was reading some content online that generally if you don't see velocity, you tend to struggle with velocity. So I don't like to take like small sample size, he can't hit velocity in Japan to mean that he can't hit it in the pros. And potentially, maybe he's a guy where they make some swing changes to shorten up his swing or something else, right, within the pros. But with that power, bat speed, exit velocity that he displays, you have to be excited about that.
Devin, the thing I keep thinking of as I'm talking to you and Alex is, okay, here's a guy, he's a fan, right? Like he was into this, he was excited about it. You're like, I don't watch baseball. I'm just doing the numbers. But I kind of like having you on the team, right? Because you're not going to be swayed by emotion. you're just going to be like almost like vicious about it. Like, this is good, this is bad. This is like, going through all this, looking at all these swings, did it make you more curious to turn on a White Sox game and see whether or not they actually do what you were talking about, or no?
Yeah, I think so. When we came to the stadium on one of the meetings, the first meeting actually we had with the team, we were able to watch their game. I don't remember who they were playing.
Who do you meet with? Who do you meet with on that team? When you do the meeting, is it Getz coming down? Is it Fuller? Is it just a representative from the White Sox? You're not giving away proprietary information to say that you met Chris Getz. I'm curious, like, who meets with you guys?
It was the front. We went with the data science team, but then there was who's the main head of analytics. It was the head of the analytics department.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was all data oriented. But no, I think
they sent one of the data nerds to talk with the data nerds. That's
essentially.
what happened? Okay, I got you. Yeah.
We had like a nice little meeting. But I think it's awesome diving into a world that isn't your own. You know, like going in kind of free-minded, especially around people that love the sport so much, and seeing how they see it. So we actually got to sit down front row and watch a game, and it was really interesting that I think we were having a conversation, and I was seeing like all the numbers kind of making sense, you know. I'm seeing the people hit, I'm seeing the pitches, I'm seeing, you know, like how people are moving, how they're moving when they hit the ball, how they're moving after a swing. Just all the numbers are sort of coming to life.
That's incredible. Listen, I'm fascinated by this whole thing. We've kind of tried to dance around what you actually found, because I don't want to give it away. One, because I want the team to win. And two, because I think if I do, the girl behind the bar is going to kill me.
Fair.
I'm going to get murdered over here.
I don't want to do it either.
And I don't want that either.
Yeah.
I don't want her to be mad at me. But again, at Cork and Kerry at the park, 33rd in Princeton, in the shadow of the ballpark, the food here is great, the beer is great. You can see people really enjoy themselves. We're sitting here on a Wednesday night. It's a Wednesday night in Bridgeport at Cork and Kerry, and there was a good crowd that came walking in here, and I would imagine it's going to continue as the night goes on. I'm fascinated by the idea that the White Sox are doing what I think forward-thinking teams are doing.
Yep.
Your timeline suggests to me that Chris Getz and his front office said, we need to start finding a way to not only develop hitters, but to also find hitters in a world where people hold on to them. I mean, you know this. You follow the team. The Orioles had nothing but guys in AAA on the cusp. They had more players that could hit, supposedly, than positions available in the majors. They wouldn't let any of them go. Yeah. And we used to yell about it on the show, like they're not getting, and in the end, some of them didn't even work out.
Totally.
And it almost suggests like they're not doing what the White Sox are doing, because the Sox then said, okay, instead of fighting with the Orioles to get these players, we can find the guys that are fixable by doing this study. Have I surmised that correctly?
Yes, you want to improve both. You want to improve selection of what players you're acquiring.
Yeah.
From a draft perspective, from a trade perspective, from a free agent perspective, whether that's minor league or major league. You want to identify those traits and hitters that you can improve or not, and then you need to develop them. And I think pitching has been for about 10 years ahead of hitting. If you think about the original development of TrackMan data and spin rate and grips and pitch types and all of that. That world's basically just developed ahead of hitting. And so, the good organizations over the last 5 years or so, if you look at the Dodgers, the Rays, the Astros, right, 5 to 7 years, they've really invested in this kind of ability to develop hitters. Yeah. And you can actually, there are traits like even swing and miss that you can coach, right? This is not proprietary information. You look at George Springer, he had, significant swing and miss issues early in his career. The good organizations have figured out.
And he's bounced back. He's bounced. He goes to Toronto, and somehow all of a sudden, the guy that looked like he was at the end of his career is right back in there at a middle of his 30s, just which is not middle age to me. I'm 48 years old. He's a child. But I'm around that. Yeah, I know. I refer to people your age as that kid over there. But you could outthink me, that's for sure, and you understand the numbers. But here's a guy in baseball terms. He's becoming an old man, and he's reinventing himself suddenly in Toronto. Probably because of things like this.
Yeah, the best hitters are using this information, right, to continue to adapt and change how they play, right, over time. You saw, years ago, right, that, we talked about the swing path revolution, right, with hitters starting to lift the ball, like a Justin Turner, there's tons of examples, Jose Bautista, like guys that changed the trajectory of their careers, right, by changing their swings.
That's awesome. Well, listen, guys, I appreciate you joining me at Cork and Kerry at the park. This has been really informative. I think we did a good job of not giving away what they actually found in this, but I think we have a good idea of the fact that the White Sox are are putting something together. They're essentially saying, this is how we fix hitters. These are the guys that are fixable. Because it sounds like your data would tell them, that guy's a lost cause. That guy over there has got a thing that we can change. And that's how we go out and we find those guys. And I think that that's really important in a world right now where teams are holding on to hitters so well. If Chris Getz turns a trade, which I think he's going to do before spring training, it's going to be using the stuff that you guys did. And I'll be very interested in the name that comes back, just as much as I'm now probably more interested in Jared Kalinick than I was before we started this interview. Because I see a guy with that pedigree, and I hear what you guys were doing, and I think about the fact that he's a power hitter and he probably has incredible bat speed already, and it's more of like just changing that hit, that swing and miss, changing the way that he's actually using force, and just making little adjustments on him. And that kind of matches up with some of the stuff that he said. Like he just recently was talking about how he talked with the White Sox, they talked about what they wanted to change with him, and it made sense with him. Take credit. Like, I think you guys should take credit. Like, you should be in the stands taking credit. Like, some guy hits a home run, and you should look at your wife. You should be like, I did that, right? Devin's gonna do it.
I've already did that.
I would love to. The Sox team we worked with was phenomenal. A lot of really smart dudes.
Yeah.
You can look up the guys that were talking last year with the Miguel Vargas swing change. If we contributed 1% of that, I would die a happy fan.
There you go. I think you're gonna be a happy fan. I think Colson Montgomery should already take credit for it. I'm giving these guys credit for Colson Montgomery. They get it. Thanks so much for being on the show, guys.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much.
Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement.
Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found and always on soxinthebasement.com.